Hello everyone. In this video we will discuss the medial surface of the cerebrum. As you can see, this is the medial surface of the cerebrum. The most prominent feature on the medial surface is the corpus callosum. This is the corpus callosum. This is the genu of the corpus callosum. This is the rostrum of the corpus callosum. This part is the body of the corpus callosum. And towards the posterior end, this is the splenium of the corpus callosum. Below the corpus callosum, we have the septum pellucidum. Below that, there lies the fornix, which is not very okay. It is seen here. This is the fornix. Then we have the third ventricle. This is the fornix. Then we have the third ventricle. Then we have different parts of the third ventricle, and then it continues as a brainstem. So we will remove the third ventricle and the brainstem part. So this is what we can see. The sulci and gyri on the medial surface. So above the corpus callosum, we have a sulcus which is known as the callosal sulcus. The callosal sulcus separates the corpus callosum from the rest of the cerebrum. Above the callosal sulcus, we have another sulcus which starts just in front of the rostrum. It goes parallel to the corpus callosum and goes up to the posterior part of the body. This sulcus is known as the cingulate sulcus, and the gyrus between the cingulate sulcus and the callosal sulcus is the cingulate gyrus. This is the cingulate gyrus. As you can see, this is a C-shaped gyrus which runs parallel to the corpus callosum. In the posterior part, the cingulate gyrus, the cingulate sulcus turns posteriorly and upwards like this. This is related posterior to the central sulcus. Now we have seen central sulcus on the superolateral surface. Again, we will mark the central sulcus on the medial surface. We know now we have to draw a line joining the frontal pole and the occipital pole. We have to find the midpoint of this line. Around 2 centimeters posterior, we have the central sulcus location on the superolateral surface. Now, a part of the central sulcus also comes on the medial surface, as we discussed. So, this is the central sulcus. The cingulate sulcus runs parallel to the corpus callosum, and just posterior to the central sulcus, it turns posteriorly and runs upwards. So, this is called as posterior upward extension of the cingulate sulcus. It also gives another extension which is in front of the central sulcus. So this is the anterior extension and this is the posterior extension, and in between lies the central sulcus. The part of the gyrus around between these two extensions is known as the paracentral lobule. This is the paracentral lobule. This is around the central sulcus and is known as paracentral lobule. This paracentral lobule is very essential in controlling the movements of your feet and in also controlling your bowel and bladder control. That is the control of voluntary control of it is the final cognitive center, the final cortical center for your control of your bowel movements. Note that the anterior part of paracentral lobule lies in the frontal lobe and the posterior part of the paracentral lobule lies in the parietal lobe. Essentially, the anterior part of the paracentral lobule is the motor control of the bowel bladder, and the posterior part of the paracentral lobule is the sensory control of the bowel and bladder. So this is how your final control happens. So this is the part of paracentral lobule. The gyrus in front of the anterior extent is a part of frontal lobe, and this gyrus is known as the medial frontal gyrus. We also saw in the last video that the supplementary motor area has a major part on the medial side, in front of the central sulcus, in front of the precentral gyrus. Here we have the supplementary motor area. This area we saw in last video that it controls activities which necessarily involve both the sides of the body. So activities of the face, of the trunk, of the truncal musculature, of the speech, these are essentially controlled by the SMA or the supplementary motor area. Coming on the front side, near the rostrum, we have two more sulci which are known as paraterminal sulci, because below the rostrum of the corpus callosum we have the lamina terminalis, which forms the anterior end of the third ventricle. This we will see when we will be discussing the ventricular system in the soul. So we have the paraterminal sulci, and around this paraterminal sulci we have the paraterminal gyri. So these are the paraterminal and para-olfactory gyri, because on the basal surface there will be olfactory bulb, and we will see. So around the olfactory bulb we have the olfactory gyrus in the anterior part, and in front of the lamina terminalis we have the paraterminal gyrus. The rest of the frontal lobe is known as medial medial frontal gyrus or medial frontal lobe. This is the medial frontal lobe. On the posterior part, over the splenium, we also have a sulcus which is similar to the cingulate sulcus. This is known as suprasplenial sulcus, and this is the part of the parietal lobe which does not have any eloquence. Now, just below the splenium, this is the splenium. Just below the splenium, another sulcus arises, which is of very significant. This is a calcarine sulcus. This is a C-shaped sulcus with its convexity upwards. It reaches up to the occipital pole, and a part of this sulcus we saw it's also present on the superolateral surface. So this is the calcarine sulcus. Around the middle of the calcarine sulcus, another sulcus arises which goes upwards and goes up to the superomedial border, and part of it is also present on the superolateral surface. So this is parieto-occipital sulcus, and this is the calcarine sulcus. Now we know calcarine sulcus is very important because the gyrus on both the sides of the calcarine sulcus is the visual cortex. This is the visual cortex. This is the lower lip, and this is the upper lip of visual cortex. It's a primary visual cortex, which is the final relay station of your visual stimuli. So in the visual cortex, the periphery of your vision, what I am seeing, not the central part, the peripheral vision is located more anteriorly, and the macular vision, that is the keenest vision, that is the most sharp vision that we can see, is located in the most posterior part of the visual cortex. Okay. Also, it has a presentation that the upper part or the superior part of the calcarine sulcus, or the superior lip or the upper lip of calcarine sulcus, has fibers from the superior retinal area. It means that it will have the inferior field of your vision will be represented in the superior part of this sulcus, and the superior field of vision will be represented in the inferior part of the sulcus. Details with diagrams we will see when we will be discussing the visual pathways. But important to remember that the macula or the finest vision is located in the most posterior part of the calcarine or the visual cortex, and the peripheral vision is located in the anterior part of the visual cortex. Why is it important? Because this macular part or the most posterior part is also supplied by branches from the middle cerebral artery. So whenever you have a stroke involving the posterior cerebral artery, this part will be spared, hence your macular vision will be spared. So you'll have a tubular vision, the finest vision, but the periphery the person will not be able to see. This is known as macular sparing. Okay. So that is a medial surface. Now we can also see that a part of temporal lobe is also seen on the medial side. Okay. So the gyri of the temporal lobe on medial side include the most prominent feature of the temporal lobe that is present on the medial side is the uncus. This is the uncus, which is the most prominent feature on the medial side. Before that, we saw that we had an inferior temporal sulcus, which is a feature of the superolateral surface, but it is also present on the medial side. This is a sulcus which starts near the temporal pole, and it extends posteriorly, and a part of it also extends into the occipital pole. So this is the inferior temporal sulcus. The gyrus medial to inferior temporal sulcus is known as the fusiform gyrus. The gyrus lateral to the inferior temporal sulcus is inferior temporal gyrus. Medial to the fusiform gyrus, we have another sulcus which is known as the collateral sulcus. This is the collateral sulcus. and the gyrus medial to the collateral sulcus is known as the parahippocampal gyrus. Note that parahippocampal gyrus is the medialmost gyrus of the temporal lobe. It is parallel to the C which is formed by the cingulate gyrus. So we'll color it in the same color of the. So cingulate gyrus is a C-shaped gyrus which curves around the corpus callosum. It has an isthmus part. This part is known as the isthmus. And lower down, the cingulate gyrus continues as the parahippocampal gyrus. So this has functional correlation as well, because all these form part of the limbic system. So this is a C-shaped lobe. Hence, limbic system is also considered as a separate lobe, which is a limbic lobe, which we'll discuss in later. In the anterior part, the parahippocampal gyrus curves around on itself. So parahippocampal gyrus curves around itself, and here it forms the uncus. The uncus, posterior to the uncus lies the hippocampus proper. This is the proper hippocampus. Between the uncus and the hippocampus lies the rhinal sulcus. So this is the rhinal sulcus. The importance of hippocampus and the parahippocampal gyri lie in the limbic system. These are essential areas for your memory development, for your explicit memory, not the implicit memory that is present by birth, by the virtue of us being human beings, but the explicit memory, that is the formation of new memories that happens every day, is because of the hippocampus and the parahippocampal gyrus. The hippocampus also extends posteriorly into the occipital pole, and this gyrus is known as lingual gyrus, which then extends into the occipital pole. As we saw that around the calcarine sulcus we have the primary visual area. So in the part of the lingual gyrus around the primary visual area we will have the visual association area of the secondary visual areas. So these are the visual association areas of secondary visual areas. Okay. So this is grossly the medial surface of the cerebrum. This is the basal surface. The basal surface is divided into two parts. This is the orbital surface of the frontal lobe, and then we have the tentorial surface of the temporal and the occipital lobe. In the frontal orbital surface of the frontal lobe, the most prominent feature is the olfactory bulb. These are the olfactory bulb, which is tapering in the anterior part, and it has a broadened end or the triangular part in the posterior aspect. This is known as the olfactory trigon. So I will label this as, this is the olfactory bulb and this is the olfactory trigon. Lateral to the olfactory trigon lies the anterior perforated substance. This is a part of the cortex in which multiple blood vessels and multiple perforators enter to supply the rest of the basal ganglia. So this is known as the anterior perforated substance. Color it anterior perforated substance. Now the part of the frontal lobe medial to the olfactory bulb is known as the gyrus rectus, because it is straight, hence it is known as gyrus rectus. The lateral part of the rest of the orbital surface is divided by an H-shaped gyri sulcus, which is known as the orbital sulcus, and this divides the orbital surface of the frontal lobe into orbital gyri. So this is the medial orbital gyrus, anterior orbital gyrus, posterior orbital gyrus, and lateral orbital gyrus. Now coming to the orbital surface or the tentorial surface of the temporal occipital pole, we saw this surface was also, because this surface is oblique, hence we can also see it from the medial side and from the basal side. So this surface was seen on the, as was seen on the medial surface. We have the uncus. Uncus is the curved part of the parahippocampal gyrus. This is the parahippocampal gyrus, which also extends posteriorly. We know this parahippocampal gyrus is separated. This sulcus is known as the collateral sulcus, which separates the parahippocampal gyrus from the fusiform gyrus. Lateral to the fusiform gyrus, we have the inferior temporal sulcus. Lateral to the inferior temporal sulcus, we have the inferior temporal gyrus. Now on the superolateral surface of the temporal lobe, we remember we had the superior temporal gyrus, middle temporal gyrus, inferior temporal gyrus. As the temporal lobe curves on the inferior part, we have the fusiform gyrus, we have the parahippocampal gyrus. In terms of temporal lobectomy, these gyri are also termed as T1. T1 is the superior temporal gyrus. So I'll write down here. T1 is the superior temporal gyrus. T2 is the middle temporal gyrus. T3 is the inferior temporal gyrus. As we curve downwards on the inferior surface, we have T4, which is the fusiform gyrus, and we also have T5, which is the parahippocampal gyrus. So these are termed as T1, T2, T3, T4, and T5. We also saw that we had a calcarine fissure or calcarine sulcus, which is a part of the, which is somewhat like this. Around the calcarine fissure, we have the visual cortex, the primary visual cortex and the secondary visual cortex. We also saw that the posterior part of the parahippocampal gyrus is known as the lingual gyrus. And we have the suprasplenial, and we have the isthmus of the corpus callosum, which is this is the isthmus of the corpus callosum that continues as the parahippocampal gyrus and the uncus here. We have the rhinal sulcus, which separates the uncus from the hippocampus proper here. So this is the inferior surface, which is more or less similar to the medial surface that we also seen. Now here we conclude all the surfaces of the cerebrum. Now we saw on the three surfaces and the four lobes, that is frontal, parietal, temporal, and the occipital lobe. But that's not it. There is one more lobe which is hidden from the surfaces of the cerebrum, which is also known as insula. Insula means island, or it is also known as insular lobe. So when we split the frontal and the parietal part of the sylvian fissure and the temporal part of the sylvian fissure, we see that in between these two a new lobe emerges, which is known as the insular lobe. So the insular lobe is separated from the rest of the cerebrum by a sulcus which is known as circular sulcus. This is the circular sulcus which separates the insula from the rest of the lobes. And in the note that anterior and inferior part, this insula is continuous, is open to the surface, and it connects to the it is continuous with the anterior perforated substance. This part is known as limen insulae. In the center of the insula, we have a central sulcus or sulcus centralis, which divides the insular lobe into an anterior part and the posterior part. In the anterior part, we have few small sulci, and this divides into multiple gyri, which is known as gyri, short gyri. In the posterior part, we have a longer sulcus, and this divides it into longer gyri or the long gyri. These are also known as gyri longa or gyri breva. The insular surface does not have any eloquence, but the importance of the insula lies that on the surface of the insula lies the branches of the middle cerebral artery, which is the M3 segment of the middle cerebral artery. And for tumors or for any lesions which are deeper to the insula, we have to split the sylvian fissure open, and then we have to reach the insula. Also note that we had the central sulcus here. So on the upper lip of the center, the part of the frontal lobe that covers the insula is known as the frontal operculum. Operculum means lid. The part of the parietal lobe that is known as parietal operculum, and the part of the temporal lobe that covers the insula is known as the temporal operculum. So that is the insula. So this covers all the 5 lobes of the cerebral cortex. Depending on the based on the functionality of the lobes of the cerebral cortex. Now we know that the cerebral cortex is composed of multiple layers of neuronal cells. These neuronal cells are divided into 6 layers of the cerebral cortex, and that is what is the earliest or the most latest development in the human beings from last millennia. So these six layers, which is not present in the animals, is known as neocortex. But however, our human brain also contains a part of cerebral cortex which is of animal origin, which has only 3 layers. So these 3 layers of cortex is known as archicortex. This 3-layered cortex is present mainly in the hippocampal areas, and also in the part of the rhinencephalon. Rhinencephalon is present here, and hippocampus we saw on the medial surface. So our rhinencephalon and hippocampus is still of animal origin, that is not very well developed, and this contains archicortex, which is only a 3-layered cortex. Now another part which is in between 3 layers and 6 layers is known as the paleocortex, which is intermediate in development, and this is formed by the cingulate gyrus. We saw the cingulate gyrus. Okay, this is the cingulate gyrus. The cingulate gyrus is formed of archicortex, the hippocampus, and the rhinencephalon is formed of the cingulate gyrus is formed of paleocortex. The hippocampus and the rhinencephalon is formed of archicortex, that is intermediate in archicortex, that is the oldest in development, and the rest of the cerebrum is formed of neocortex, that is 6-layered cortex. So that's all about the cerebral cortex. In the next video, before we go to the subcortical structures, I would try to incorporate a video in which we will be discussing the main sulci gyri based on the MRI, because that is what is most important for non-surgical candidates of neurosciences, in which I will discuss how we see these sulci gyri and how we identify these structures based on MRI, only the surface areas. Right. Hope you enjoy this video. Thank you.